Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome back. And ignore that phone. We've got a call coming in, and I'm not sure who that is, but we don't need to worry about that right now. So, I'm just going to say hello and welcome back. Today, let's just get right to it. Let's make it a fun day. And it's Friday again. Hey, you know what? I think they're calling for snow here coming up next week here in E-Town. Um, but let's talk about something a little bit more fun. Hey, Cy Woods, welcome and hello. Appreciate you stopping in today. And today's topic is going to be one a little different. I mean, it's always fun to talk about the responsible things, right? You know, the reliable cars and things that matter and that are important, and cars and responsible buys, responsible purchases, spending our money in places that matter and are responsible. But let's just say you win the lottery. Let's just say that you have an absolutely ridiculous amount of money, and all of a sudden it's time to let me just see here. Oh, I got a mess up. Let's just take it's time to have some fun, right? You know, we all know that, you want a reliable car, you're going to probably buy a Toyota or a Honda. But I want to preface this conversation. I was watching TikTok on here the other day, and I saw a clip by our good friend Jeremy Clarkson, and it got me thinking. Good morning, everybody. Or not good morning, good afternoon. Um, Faisal Nazim, hello, Mark. Hope you are well, and I hope you're well as well, and I hope everybody is doing fine on this great Friday afternoon. Martin Ruan Senior, snow already? Yes, not yet, but they're talking about it maybe next week. And unfortunately, that gets me thinking, because as we get into these snowy seasons here in Edmonton and Alberta and Calgary and all this whole area that's close to the Rocky Mountains, we usually get a pretty quick early snowfall. It's been beautiful. It's been a lovely summer, very minimal precipitation. The fall has run its course fairly well, but you know what? It's inevitable. Come October, generally Halloween, we get snow here. And so as we hit the snow, it gives us more time to reflect on, whether you've got a fun car and you give it that time to polish it up and finally get caught up. It's a good time to sort of park the car, the toy, treat it to some love, maybe give it a good polish, a wax, change the tires, do an oil change, do all those things. But it gets you thinking, once you're done all that work, what would you do if you won, millions? Let's say $50 million. What would your dream car look like? This is a little bit of a different conversation. And there's been some really interesting cars come out recently. McLaren's got one. Ferrari's got one. We see Corvettes breaking records there with the ZR1. And there's a lot of really cool cars out there. What would be your dream car? Let's just see here. We have 90 State of Mind. What has better value? A 2022 BMW X540i, 6-cylinder for $45K, or with 35,000 miles, or a 21 Lexus IS500 for $41 with 68,000 miles. Long term, the Lexus will do better for you, but the BMW, I would say it's a more practical solution. So depends what you're looking for. Anton says a Miata is always a good solution. Absolutely. Is it your dream car, Anton? Let me just ask you, is that your dream car? If you won $40 million today, what would you buy a Miata? They're great cars. They're very, very cool. Branch Troll Fanboy says my dream car is a Lamborghini. Any particular Lamborghini? I've driven a few of them. I can tell you there's some that really stand out for me, but do you have a specific model that jumps out at you? V12, how about V12 with the big doors, or V10, smaller, more compact and stout? They both have their benefits. They're both quite different cars. 90 Steel Mind, 23 Lexus 350H with 35,000 miles for $43K. Yeah, I would say a Lexus is always going to be a safe bet. Is that the dream car? Cywood says a Porsche GT3. Absolutely. GT3 is an awesome car. Probably one of the best cars that's like a track car that you can drive on the street. And I've always loved Porsches. I've had several of them myself, so I can definitely relate to that. Would you go with the GT3 or the GT3 RS? That's the real question. Porsche Cayenne, Audi Q8, or how about the RS Q8? Range Rover, Velar Sport, regular Range Rover, Brown Eyes says, yeah, so clearly you like your SUVs, your sporty, luxurious SUVs. Those are all wonderful vehicles. If you're not worried about the money and the cost and the servicing, they're all great to own. What else do we have? Julius says Jaguar XJR 575. Absolutely. XJR, that's sweet. How about a Project 7? I know some friends of mine that have a Project 7 and an SVR. So I think that qualifies as a pretty stout lineup there too. Brown Eyes, Cayenne, Audi Q8. So Martin Ruan Sr., you helped me decide not to buy 17 BMW 5 Series about a year ago. So I bought a 24 Camry XLE. Great choice. The Camry's a good looking car. 100% Martin. A great car. It's looking good. XLE V6. Beautiful car. Not a compromise in my opinion. Sure, lag, it doesn't handle quite the same, but you know what, on a day-to-day, and that car's going to last you hundreds of thousands of miles. So great choice on that. Sidewoods, Bentley Super Sports, Ferrari 812. Oh yeah, the super fast. Gotta love a Ferrari. I love Ferraris. I love Lambos and I love McLarens. If we're talking endless money, I'd write a check. I'd probably have a couple of each. There's some models. Have you heard of the new F80 by Ferrari? What do you think about that one with 1,200 ponies? I know that one's been a long time in the works, like 8 to 10 years. And, they had the F40, they had F50, F80, you had the LaFerrari and the Enzos. So they have some pretty spectacular cars in there. The 812 is just a beast. Range Rovers last a long time. Not really. Brown Eyes, I love those. Thank you, says 90 State of Mind. You betcha. Let's see. Audi Aventador. So Branch Troll Fanboy says Aventador. Great choice. And while a lot of people, the hype for the SVJ, I'd say the SVJ is not my favorite. I think it's a cool car. I think it's a little overdone. I like the SV the best. But quite frankly, bang for buck, and you've hit the bottom for value, so it's a great place to buy in. Would be like an Aventador or a regular Aventador. But again, if you're winning the lottery, go all in, I suppose, right? So what do we see here? Luke Walker, hi Mark, just came through Hurricane Helena and Milton, relatively unscathed. Oh, that's good to hear, Luke. 100%. I'm glad for you and your family and all those around you that you're able to get through that. We had family there too. Or we have family that lives in the Orlando area, and they were fortunate to make it through. They saw some big winds and some trees and some minor damage in the area, but their home is fine. They're fine too. So you're right. I think it went down to category 2 there as it sort of rolled through the land. And so by the time it hit places like Orlando and inland, it's kind of knocked itself down a little bit. So that's good to hear. 100%. Good to hear, Luke. Kevin Hawthorne, good evening from Lakeland, Florida. How did you make out there, Kevin, with the storms? Hopefully everything worked out okay there for you. I just see here. Do Mercedes last a long time, Brown Eyes? Not overly. I mean, if we're being honest, and I'm going to be doing a video coming up really soon on Exotic Car Play Place here, talking about, I've already did a very popular video about why new engines just don't last like the older engines, but I'm going to dive into a very specific technology that they incorporate in a lot of engines now that are absolutely destroying engines slowly one by one. And it's a very disastrous technology that they're incorporating in a lot of these engines. And they were thinking initially it was for better metering and performance, but realistically, it's wreaking havoc and taking out a lot of engines. So we'll talk about that. And that's a video coming up. And so it has me talking about Mercedes and a lot of these cars now with these small turbocharged 4-cylinder engines with direct injected and turbos and all of that. So there's gonna be some challenges coming up, but we'll see. Mercedes, yeah, the older naturally aspirated cars are better, if I can just say that. Tube Dude says IS 500 for the win. Beautiful car, 500. You betcha. That's a great car. The LC 500, another one. GT4 RS. I love the GT4 RS. I mean, if it weren't for the fact that it was basically a Cayman, you could make all kinds of argument. It's better than a 911. It really is an amazing car. What's the one worst car ever? Worst car out there? What's the worst car out there? Anybody out there got a comments on that? I've got some theories and my own personal opinion, but there's some real trash out there. Brown Eyes, which one is better, Audi or BMW? I would recommend for the most part BMW. Not to be a fanboy, because I'm not a fanboy. I think Audi has like the RSQ8 is cool, the R8 is cool, the TTRS and the RS3 is cool. Outside of that, I'd be looking more BMW. Um, I call the shot, says McLaren 675 LT. Yes, that's a beast. Love it. I've driven a couple 720 and a 650 and a 570, so I get the gist. I have not driven a 675, but I everything I hear, it's a 720 that's just edgier and sharper. So I don't blame you. That's probably one of the best cars out there. Bobby De Niro says IBX, Morizo, and Luke Walker. Mark, do you think you will ever own a C8 Z06? I'm going to say probably not, Luke. Maybe. I should say never say never. The only reason I say this is because I'm kind of heavily committed right now in a car I've ordered, and I'm waiting for delivery, which is supposed to be coming next year, which I know I mentioned this a couple weeks ago. I promised to showcase the car on the channel. I promise I'll give it the ins and outs. I'll give it full review. I'll give you everything you want to know, because let's face it, I mean, car reviewers are, they're always trying to, be popular. They're trying to sell to get the next cars to review and that. So they're going to balance their theories and opinions. And when I come to the table with opinions, it's my own experience, my own feelings and thoughts. And I will share, I'll be brutally honest, both good and not so good. So I will have that car because I'm committed there. I probably won't buy a Z06 anytime soon, but I would say that is, it's a hard one to ignore. That is a phenomenal car, Luke. If I weren't going that other route, I would seriously give it a look. Bobby De Niro, Pagani Zonda, to be the ultimate. Oh yeah, that is sweet. Zondas, Paganis, any of those, Juarez, and all those Paganis are just spectacular. I love them all. United Funding Corp Real Estate, Lexus LFA. Lexus LFA. Oh yeah. You know what? Raw. One of the best sounding V10 engines anywhere. And the gearbox is a little crude, but you know what? If you come from a place of driving the older generation Ferrari, like 430s with the F1, or the Gallardos with the E gears, then you'll appreciate the gearboxes in the or even maybe the M5 E60. You'll appreciate the gearbox in the LFA, but it has a nice engine. Oh, that's a definitely great choice. Josh Hadley, Ferrari F50. Ferrari for the win. There's a lot of Ferraris here for sure. I know it's the car brand that, it's the easy one to pick, but there's a lot of amazing cars out there too. So Active Scam Pump. Oh, what's Active Scam Pump? Tube Dude, is the start-stop technology cylinder deactivation or mild hybrid drives? Sure. What else we have? Arnico Day Channel, a Mitsubishi Mirage is my dream car. Hey, you know what? Gets you around A to B. Nothing wrong with that for sure. And Luke Walker, many things taken out engines from AFM to direct injection. Totally. Those things are definitely taken out engines for sure. And yeah, the Tube Dude there. So in terms of things that take out engines, the auto start can, in some cases. A lot of the newer ones with the hybrids now are part of that starting system, so it doesn't really hurt them. But the base engines, when tied to start-stop, yes, it's not good. Cylinder deactivation, really bad. Start-stop is bad. Ford Mustang, 4-cylinder. Josh, 4-cylinder Mustang. Worst car. Yep. You know what? Yeah, that's not a good car. You know what? I think, in my opinion, what probably one of the worst cars right now, the worst car, it is an absolute ridiculous car, in my opinion, right now. It's the Ford Eco Sport. You know that little Eco turd? It looks like an Escape from a distance, but you get closer and it's just narrower and kind of goofy looking. It kind of looks like the Buick Encore. That's kind of like, from the side it looks okay, and then you look at it from the front and it's just narrow. It looks like a clown car. The problem with the Eco Sport is that it's rocking that little 3-banger. even worse, it uses a timing belt, and it also uses the belt for the oil pump, which is a big mistake. So you've got gears and a belt that runs around that gear system, drenched in bathed in oil. And so it's just a big recipe for failure. It's very. Have you ever seen those cheap upright vacuum cleaners you can buy at Walmart for $89.95? And then, you burns the belt and you got to turn it upside down and you pop the bottom out and then you flip that belt off, that little rubber belt, and you can go buy them for a pack of 3 of them for $4.99 at Walmart. That's what an EcoSport drive looks like, in my personal opinion. So I think that's probably the biggest joke of a car right now on the market, in my personal opinion. And I think Ford, I know they're trying to create price point vehicles, but that's just not a good one in my mind. Luke, yeah, Ford has lost its way a bit in some ways. You betcha. I mean, they're selling a lot of trucks. They're popular. I think they've got the most sturdy, robust bodies. Their bodywork on their trucks seem to hold up better than like Rams. They basically rot out. GMs, they rust out too in certain spots. You get the cylinder deactivation issues. You have the rocker lifter issues in the GMs and the transmission problems. And the Rams are just trash for the most part. I mean, we like them. They're nice trucks, but they just don't hold up very well. And the Fords, well, their engines are hit and miss, just loaded with recalls. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of what it is, right? Have an Amigo Day channel, get a Lotus. Like, oh yeah, Lotus, Exige, Elise, some very, very cool models there. Matt Norman. So you like the Lambo SV, the Lambo SV. So presume we're talking which one? The Aventador, which is probably was I was talking about. But I happen to drive one of my dream cars, and I want to shout out to Bruce and Sandra, some friends of ours who live out in the Okanagan. They happen to have two of the I'll just say it, the sexiest Murcielagos this side of the Rocky Mountains. And the reason I say that is they have an early gated car. It's yellow Murcielago with a gated shifter. I think it's an 03. And they also have the last generation SV Murcielago. And I got to drive that car, and it's still, I was shaking when I got out of that car. It was just phenomenal. And to me, that's the creme de la creme. Classic meets supercar. That's the goodies. Luke, Mark, question, please. If you have 40,000 cash to buy a used daily driver that has some performance, aka entertainment value, what used car would you suggest? Okay, Luke, if you're talking cars, SUVs, I prefer cars all day. For 40 grand, you're probably talking US money, which would probably translate to somewhere in that $65,000 Canadian. No joke. That's probably what it's at. I would probably go back to the F-Type, or maybe 340, later generation B58. With the X-Drive, so you get the all-wheel drive. For a daily driver, I would probably look at either of those. I think they're both great cars. I would look again at trying to find, they're hard to find these days, at an Audi TTRS or an RS3. And I had mentioned those ones already as some of my faves, but I think even the RS3 realistically probably is one of the top picks. And largely because it has the all-wheel drive. It's sort of equipped to run that way. Although it doesn't have the classic Quattro system, it uses like a Haldex system. So it has a different all-wheel drive. It's intended more for sport rather than just the gripping and rolling through the snow. So the Haldex and the all-wheel drive system in the RS3 is phenomenal. So I would probably go with the RS3 or TTRS. Kind of depends on the mood, or if I found one with a good spec and a maintenance history to it. Amigo Day Channel says CVT transmission is okay. Just got to change the fluid and filters every 25K. They can work, and some brands have proven they'll work. High maintenance, lots of fluid changes, and don't gun it off of first gear all the time. So if you're driving the car as just a casual daily and you're easy on it and you do all your maintenance, they can last a fair amount of time. It's just they're not as sturdy, as robust as, say, a torque converter or a manual gearbox. So CVTs are a hit and miss. Luke Walker, that's why we respect you, Mark. You speak truth. Yeah, I appreciate that, Luke. No, that's great. And I do try to speak the truth, and I do want to share a no nonsense. I don't want to fib. Like a lot of these, there are people that do kind of throw it out there and just try to say what you want to hear and just try to rally their next car or whatever. But I just want to be real as I can, because let's face it, there's nobody very few people truly advocating for us, for the buyers and the owners. I mean, there's a million strong, like the marketing power and the hand of God of marketers come down on us and influence us that we have to buy all these cars and what's good for us. But realistically, there's a lot of money and smarts and people and boardroom tables full of people conjuring up scams, schemes, and architect and lectures and information to dazzle and get you to buy their next car. And when in fact, a lot of it's junk. And this kind of goes back to the beginning of this conversation and the context of the video or this live stream is, what would you buy? What would be your dream car be? Because I was watching a TikTok, and it was Jeremy Clarkson that basically said, somebody asked him the question, what would what do you like for modern cars? Like, what are some of your favorite new cars? And he just kind of chuckled it off. He said, they're all junk. They're trash. He said about 80-90% of them now are boring. You can't tell the difference between one from the other. And there's no inspiration. You don't even know what's what anymore. There's so many, and there's so many overlapped, and they all look the same, that they just don't inspire anymore. So that's why I have to ask the question about, if you had a lottery winnings, what would you buy? Because it wouldn't be probably that 80%. It would be that 10%, right? It would probably be something that's a little bit more unique, something along what Jeremy Clarkson was talking about. So let's just see here. Tube Dude says CVT transmissions belong in forklifts and ATVs. I have a Kawasaki Brute Force 750 for any of you who's aware of those kind of things. And I use that just for tooling around at our other house there. We have an acreage out west. And I love ripping around on that thing. It's just a beast. But that rocks a CVT. And every once in a while, you trip a belt light, because they have the CVT. They have a belt that runs through these shivs. And as it accelerates, it pushes the shivs out, and the belt tightens up and does all this magic and engages. But as it wears, there's a little switch in there, and it activates when there's a fault. Like if the belt is damaged or too loose, or there's frays on it, then it activates that. And it's a big pain, because sometimes it even goes almost prematurely. And that's just, shows that there's a certain fragility to that design. And granted, it's a rubber belt, not a steel belt like you find in a lot of these cars, but it's not a great deal. So, Julu, cool. Our Pizzle opinion on C8 Vet, awesome. I like the Stingray. And really all of them feel the same from the driver's seat, really. The Stingray, Z06, ZR1. Driven both of those, not a ZR1, but Z06 and Stingray, affirmative, great cars. So what I would say is definitely a winner. And who cares what people think? Because there's people that, it's a wannabe Ferrari. No, the sad part is when you're rocking that, think about that Z06 or even the ZR1, and it's eating most of its competition for lunch. There's no joke. It's a mid-engine. It sounds good. It goes good. I love the C8s. I also like the C7s, because I think that's the latest and the greatest, with the most power, and that supercharged via Z06, just great. And I like the C6 too, because I think that's the best, most compact looking, more true to its look. And I feel like it's the sportiest looking, but they're all cool. Luke, hit the like to support Mark's channel. No, I appreciate that, Luke. That is super, and I do appreciate it. And if any of you guys want to come tomorrow, Exotic Car Play Place, I've got a video popping out tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. on Mountain Standard Time. Be sure to check it out. You're gonna love that one. And Monday, the car news. I've got another great episode coming up on the car news on Monday morning, same time, 8 o'clock MST. I definitely want to check those out because I think I'm going to be getting into a lot more like juicy stuff. Sure, there's going to be lots of these walkarounds, but I know you guys have been responding a lot of these car lots blitzes and where I talk about reliability, but I hit it. I go I go through like 30 cars in like, I do a minute a car and I just blitz it. And I know you guys like that. And I like it too, because it's a way to just cover a pile of info without wasting your time and just get to the point, get a lot of the critical information out there and summarize it with ratings. And the channel's been growing, and you guys, all because of you guys, the viewers, have been a big part of that. And really, without you, I mean, it would be nothing, just me talking in front of a camera. So I really, 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 really can't help but thank all of you for this and this opportunity. What do we got here? James David Smith, 6.6 Duramax. How about the Duramax and the H1? The H1 Humvees and the convert Duramax and get rid of the old Detroit diesel and throw a Duramax in there. 2G Sequoia and Tundra Unimog. I love the Unimogs. Can't find any of those around anymore. And I think everybody caught on. There was a time when you can get those for cheap, but now they're just sort of like gone up so crazy in terms of money. But yeah, let's just see. So Courtney Puzo says, if it's an American sports car, then either a 73 Corvette Grand Sport or a Mustang Boss 429. It's an import, either a Miata Grand Touring or Porsche 911 Targa Top GT3. All great cars. I mean, clearly the sporting cars, the most raw. They're like Porsche and Miata. You're speaking to a car that you can roll your own gears. They're fun to drive. And I think that's, people are, when you hear about what's going on with McLaren and Ferrari, with these new hypercars they're releasing now with 1,200 ponies, there's a whole pile of electric motors, a twin turbo V6, direct injected, all kinds of variable control and wings and aero and suspension control. They're so complicated and technical. Boy, you want to buy the extended warranty on some of those cars for sure. Mario, hey, welcome back, Mario. Koenigsegg Gemera and Porsche Dakar. Great choices. Koenigsegg. Did I ever tell you, Mario, and the rest of the group here, a few years ago, I was visiting down. I went down to the Lambo dealer here in Alberta, and it's a couple of years ago, and a gentleman showed me to the back. There's a salesperson there, and he said, "You know what? I've got something cool hiding back there in the shop." So he dragged me down there, and I mean, the showroom had all kinds of great stuff. I mean, they had an STO Huracan, they had Aventadors, they had an SV, they had all that great stuff. But he took me down to the shop, and I saw some stuff down there that made those cars look like sour grapes. They had a Regera R down there, a Koenigsegg Regera R that was exposed carbon. Well, it was treated with, it was a glossy finished carbon exterior, like the whole body was just all carbon. You look down the back window and it's just this little porthole. The interior was just finished in this absolutely gorgeous quilted stitching, and the carbon on this car was absolutely impeccable. The wheels were all carbon. I wouldn't even want to drive that thing. It would scare me to drive that Regera. A car that cost millions and then take it out on these roads. But that was pretty impressive. Yeah, Mario. So Koenigsegg, I don't think you can really go wrong with any of them. DG, I'd buy a Lamborghini Miura, another classic. Yes, gotta love that. That's one of the rare animals there with the front engine. Shout out to Lambo for that. That's a great one. Bobby De Niro says, your extended warranty will need extended warranty on them hypercars. Yes, it will. I would imagine. And I don't think the extended warranty comes cheap. I've seen some extended warranty prices for some of these brands. I've seen extended warranties on Porsches, McLarens, and Ferraris. And when you're talking about extended warranties in that, $30,000, $40,000 to get you 2 years, it's a lot of money. Now that kind of gives you some insight as to how much some of these parts might cost to replace. But yeah, I mean, you got to have deep wallets to pay for this stuff. So it's kind of nice to have, the warranty or the lottery winnings for sure. Tube Dude says superchargers uh, over turbos any day. And my F-Type Jag would agree with that. And the superchargers just give you that punch. And turbos probably have the ultimate in possibilities for top-end power. But for drivability, that punch and the seat of the pants, driving performance, the superchargers got it licked. And with that F-Type that I have there, that all-wheel drive and 550 ponies, but you get that supercharged torque and you hit it, and you just picture this, visualize this. A car with that kind of performance, 5-liter supercharged V8 with a torque band that's very low in the curve. You have immediate torque and that's supercharging. So imagine you're cruising in first gear in your auto, because it's 8-speed auto, and you're in first gear and you rev it up just casually, say at about $3,000, and hold it and then hit it. Wow. There's not much that doesn't hit your head so hard against the back of the seat like that. It's just great. You really got to give it a try if you ever get a chance to drive an F-Type R. If you haven't, or an SVR, and put that into the pocket. Put it in full dynamic mode, sport mode, hold it in first gear, rev it up, and just hit it, and wham. Trust me, you'll know what I'm talking about. DG says, or if I could find, I'd get a Alfa Romeo Stradale 33. Oh, yeah. Another rare animal, for sure. For sure. There's some cool cars out there. Julu, yeah. Tube Dude says, the Huracan doesn't seem to come with heated steering wheel. Does that sound like a deal breaker? Wouldn't be a deal breaker for me. That I had a Gallardo. It's the older version. It's kind of vintage now compared to the Huracans, which now the Temerario's the newest. My Huracan or my Gallardo had heated seats, but it didn't have a heated steering wheel. It doesn't bother. I mean, you're not driving it in extreme cold anyway. And quite honestly, even if it's a plus 5-degree day, that's not enough to really warrant that. Car heats up fine inside anyway. And honestly, you're too hyped and juiced and jacked anyway to drive the car and worry about that. That's not really the first thing resonating with you. At least it wasn't for me. As soon as I get in there, the first thing I'm smelling that Gucci purse leather that's just wafting in the cabin. So if you can just smell that, just if you get a chance, sometime you go into one of these high-end stores, go to a Gucci store or something like that, one of these Italian stores, and go just, you'll look odd. Hey, I've looked odd, and I don't care. I'm open to admit that. My wife looks at me and says, "You're hilarious." But I'll walk into these stores and I'll grab these purse and I'll stick it up to my face. And that leather smell you get, awesome. And quite honestly, that's what it smells like sitting in a Lamborghini. Let's see here. Tube Dude, you laugh out loud. Yeah, I know. My wife laughs too. It's great. Bobby De Niro says Porsche Dakar. Nice. You betcha. You know it. You know it for sure. So, Branch Troll Fanboy says Nissan Pathfinder, get rid of the CVT. Nissan has been some struggles, and they'll tell you all about it. And I think their loss in profits and their poor sales and their reduced number of models are all examples of why they lost their way. I think Nissan Infiniti sort of lost their way. They had some great models. Like, what happened to the R35? Like, what happened to some of these cars? Let's just see here. Let's just see. Do we have any members on the line here? Any members on the line? Shout outs. Tube Dude. Oh, by the way, Mark, what did you think of the 80 or the B9, B95, S5 or RS5 Sportback? Any RS5 and S5s are decent, and I like the Sportback. I think they're cool. Gives you an extra kind of versatility, but in this case with the RS, and it's a fun car. They're beautiful looking cars, and I've said this before, and I think Audi has the nicest interiors from the German competition. They're nicer than I mean, Mercedes is a toss-up, but nice and quality versus just nice looking. Mercedes looks nice too inside, but the quality feels a little chintzy to me. The Audi is nice and better, and BMW is not quite as dressed up, in my opinion, interior wise. And I think Audi has the better interiors. Um, Mario, the Ferrari 288 GTO. Hey, did you realize? Maybe I can even find this. You know what? I was in Italy a few years ago. No, last year. Let me see if I can find this for you. Um, because I have to show you guys this because I went to the factory in Italy and let me show you some pictures. I went to the Ferrari factory in Italy, in Maranello and all of that. And I mean, uh, nothing short of spectacular. Let's just put it that way. Does this car look familiar? You see that? Oh, oh, what do we got there? There he is, a 288 GTO. Right there. That's me in the factory. And I was taking a good walk around of the 288 Mario right there. I know you're going to like that one. And hopefully the rest of you like this because that is me filming this in the Ferrari factory last year. And the 288 GTO is, in fact, one of the best cars ever made. Why do you think the value has gone up so ridiculous on these? Why has the value? So there's my hand there, me and my hand waving. Everybody knows who's a follower of the channel. See right there. There's the 288 GTO. And yeah, great choice on that one. So I'll just take that down and put that away for now. Aston Martin Vantage as well. Mario, we know you like the Vantage, DB9s, and really all of the Astons are cool, particularly when you equip them with a manual gearbox. Rob's neighbor, good evening, everyone. I just put some miles on a customer's Honda ST1300. I know it's a motorcycle. That's where my mind is right now. I like motorbikes. I used to ride. And a lot of you are probably, oh, you're the car guy. I am. But I'm so damn old, it hurts, right? I used to ride many years ago. I had several motorcycles. And I used to ride until I had a couple of very near misses. Never got seriously hurt, but I did take a couple tumbles and I did an ass over tea kettle on a FZR 1000 one time. And I also had a couple wipes where I slid out. And I have thought about maybe buying another bike. I think bikes are cool. I was thinking Ducati, the DFL. I love the DFL. Mario, my favorite Ferrari of all time, classic Ferrari. Next, love Dino GTS. How about, Mario, honestly, like something that is totally attainable. Have you ever maybe thought, I'm going to ask you this or anybody else, how about like a 308? A 308 is basically like a 288 GTO is a dressed up hotted 308, really, in my mind. Would you even think about maybe buying a 308 just to, have that sexy Italian sports exotic car from back in the 80s? They look beautiful, they sound beautiful, they got the gated shifters, and there's no one's going to laugh at that. Mondial, not quite as nice, but the 308, I would challenge you. I mean, is that something you might even consider maybe buying? I think that would be a great car. Honestly, I think a 308 could be a fun car. We can get into the world and enjoy, Ferrari and kind of everything they have to offer, but without, having to invest in $500,000, $750,000. It's a fun car. I've often thought, maybe buying something vintage like that too, because they don't have all the double clutch gearbox nonsense. They don't have all the variable this and variable that and hybrid this and electric that. It's just raw. And I love a 308. I love a 348, 355s, even a 360s and 430s are cool too. So they're all pretty cool. Hey, Ahmad, great to see you back. 991.2 GT3. Any GT3 is a winner in my books. Great choice on that one. 100%. GT3s. Would you buy a GT3 RS? Just asking. I know there's a gentleman here, and I'm not going to call out the business name, Maybe any of you know him. Let's just put it this way. He's the son of some owners, and they own a steakhouse here. And he's gone through several 911 GT3s and RSs. I believe he's got into the Lamborghini world lately, but he also has had some GT3s and always some great ones. So anybody know any thoughts? Maybe we shouldn't call anybody out, but definitely when you know, and he's gone through numerous of them. And a word has it, I heard he even bought a car that he bought from Nicolas Cage. Didn't know it was his car. Saw this car, tried to import it, wanted to import it, went down, I think, to California, possibly, a word has it, allegedly. Went down there looking for this car just because it was a hard one to find. And apparently, I heard that it was Nicolas Cage's car. So he brought that back up to our town. And and it was one of his, made his collection. So that was cool. Mario, all the cars I love will never afford. I mean, we always, I guess we got to have something to shoot for, or a goal, or, a dream. But yeah, like, I get it. I look at this brand new Ferrari F80 and, in a perfect world, I'd own that car. But realistically, $4 million, $5 million Canadian to buy that car, it's a halo car. Even if Ferrari would sell that to me, which they won't, because there's only a very limited number and I'm just a nobody. I that would be a hard one to own for the long term, I think, because you kind of have to have the bankroll, not just to buy it, but to own it. What do we have? Let's just see. Banana Land Productions. If you love cars so much, name three. If you love cars so much, name three. Name three what? What kind? What do you mean? Ones that I would like? Tube Dude says 458 Spider or Z07 convertible. The 458 is an absolutely wonderful car. And I think that's where the sort of the newer generation for Ferrari, I think that was a monumental leap forward into the new generation. So I think the 458 is one of their best ever. Chan Park 911 Turbo S and very second be a 64 Stingray. Person after my heart. I love both those cars. LFA Ahmad says LFA beautiful. We mentioned that one, it was mentioned earlier too, and it's a wonderful. The LFA is just a cool car. So yeah, I mean, they're hard to come by and they're worth a lot of money now. But you know what? Maybe I can find something else here. I like the LFAs too. What about this car? Anybody like this car? Anybody like this car? What do you think about this car? Any thoughts? Any thoughts on that car right there? Anybody know what that is? Anybody know what that is? And any thoughts? 296. Tube Dude says 296. Yeah. There's a lot of people on the line that would know and some that probably don't. What do you guys think about the car? GTB. Yes. Ahmad, you betcha. 296 GTB. That's their newest entry-level hybrid car, supercar in the Ferrari world, for sure. Mario, I've always been a crazy car enthusiast with no budget. At least I was fortunate to find my dream fun car. My JCW is impossible to beat for fun on a small budget. You know what? And Mario, I've mentioned this before, and I truly believe, the budget, one thing, but I think you can have more fun in a car that doesn't cost an arm and three legs than you can have in a car that costs your life. Like, I truly believe that. And I've said this before about one of the most fun cars I've ever driven was a Miata. And all they did to it was had a track prep suspension on it. And it had all of its 130 horsepower, but it was so damn fun. It was one of the most memorable cars I've ever driven. I've driven minis, not a JCW. I've driven base minis with the underpowered, drivetrains, but they're still so much fun. They have the character, and you definitely nail it. You have a real winning combo, a real car with character. I love it. And I mean that. I think that's such a cool car. I think it's just, I think some of those cars are so underrated. I mean, we get all this news in the honestly, we get all of this stuff in the press about the fastest new Ferrari, the fastest new Corvette, the fastest breaking records, these hybrid cars with 2,000 horsepower, electric cars with 2,000 horsepower, Temerarios with this high revving turbo hybrids, and this is Revueltos, and all of these great cars. But I mean, they're millions of dollars, and honestly, I guarantee you, that the driving experience is fun, but the paranoia in driving that, the sheer level of performance that they deliver just does not matter on a day to day. You get on the streets here. I was driving my Gallardo, which is a mere 500 horse by today's standards, is pretty meager. And I had the Popo follow me around. I'd go this way, and then I'd go that way, and then I'd go this way, and I was intentionally turning a different block after block, and they were following me very slowly from a distance, following me on every turn. And cars like that just attract a lot of attention, and it's not always good attention. And so that's why I think it's nice in your mind to dream about some of these cars, but in reality, the ownership experience isn't always what you dream it to be. I had my Gallardo, again, not the most expensive. I drove it. We parked it in front of on the street on White Ave. We had a lunch on the patio and Boston Pizza. And I look over, and there's a homeless guy. He threw his soup across the back of my car. I lost it. I absolutely lost it. But it attracts attention that sometimes you don't want, and you know what? It's not for everybody, and you're spending a lot of money. That's why I think it's nice to dream, and our dream cars. And I use the term dream cars. In theory, they're wonderful. But even to gas those cars up, you start thinking about, okay, I need to get some gas, and you just drive on down to Esso or Mobile at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. No, you try to avoid those, because quite often it leads into a conversation, many conversations, and a lot of them are fun because it's awesome to share, because most people are enthusiasts and they appreciate that. But it also attracts a certain negative response too sometimes, and so it's kind of what it is. It's just one of those things. So take it for what it is. But I do believe that it doesn't matter what you drive, and it doesn't matter if it's a $5,000 car or a $200,000 car. If it's an enthusiast car, I really believe that's all that really matters, to be honest. Mario says the 296 is the most beautiful Ferrari ever built since leaving Pininfarina. I actually think so too. When I first saw it, I thought, oh, I wasn't in love with the front end of it. But then the more I looked at it, and then when you see them in person, I think it's very striking. And it actually does, if I can say it, almost dates the outgoing F8. I know that's going to be a controversial phrase. A lot of people are going to say the F8 is one of the best. But yeah, I mean, I think it really is. It's a gorgeous car. And I think a lot of the Ferraris are now. S2000 with 9,000 9K VTEC is a blast. Very visceral. Luke, you betcha. I rented one in Vegas years ago. It's an awesome car. I had a good friend of mine too, also had one. And you can never go wrong. It's basically a Miata with a much higher revving engine. Is very much the way it feels to me. Less torque, more revs, but very much the same kind of feel. So to me, an S2000 and a nice Miata or MX-5 are very much the same car. The Banana Naimaus, simple BMW 340. Great cars. Get it in manual, and then you'll find that's a fun car if you can get any of these BMWs with a manual gearbox. But unfortunately, I think those were you couldn't until later. Now they're offering up some BMWs again with manuals and some of these newer drivetrains. But yeah, what do we have here? Bentley Continental GT by George. I love that car. It looks great. And they're not dated at either. You can get the older ones and they still look new, and the new ones look old, and they're just great. The Roma is gorgeous. Ahmed says the Roma is gorgeous. I think it really is. The back end is striking for me. The front end is definitely a unique look for it. And the interior is, to die for. I love the interior on the Roma, and the back end looks a little like an F-Type R, but it's a beautiful car. 850 Grand Coupe, Chief DKs, beautiful cars. Sales weren't great on them, so you can get some great deals on those because depreciation kind of crushed them. What else we got? Hi, sir. Do you recommend undercoating modern cars? Twisted reality. I would say for the most part, it's overkill. There's a lot of modern cars now, composites and plastics and aluminum. Probably overkill in a lot of cases, unless you're buying like some of the older generation, maybe pickup trucks, things that are more conventional, ladder frame suspension, like the Rams and the Fords and the GMs. You probably want to undercoat some of those vehicles if they've got more of a carbon steel or ladder frame suspension. Yes, I would recommend undercoating it in the northern climates. A lot of these unibody cars, depending on what they are, again, if they're more high tech, more aluminum, more composites, don't bother. Save your money and just clean it more. That's what I do. I clean my cars underneath really well in the winter times, and I've never had an issue. The cars and the vehicles I've had more issues were the ladder frame vehicles and the steel suspension, steel frames, in which case, yeah, definitely undercoat it. But basically, I find just washing the crap out of the undercarriage is just the best way to do it. Channel, what do you think of the Alfa Romeo Giulia? The quad. Quadrifoglio, yes. Twin turbo 2.9 V6, I believe. Super fun. But even the base Giulia is a lot of fun. And it's a nice alternative. Everybody's buying, the 330s, BMWs. Why not give the Giulia a look? They're a fun car. I love them. A V12 Vanquish is a twin turbo V12. Port City Investments. A lot of fun there. You betcha. I love the British cars. They're so cool. And again, to Mario, definitely any of the British cars just have the character that you just see. The German cars are lacking a lot of the character, although they're fun to drive and they're a bit more well sorted and dependable. The British and the Italian cars bring the personality. So if you're looking for personality, you buy those. If you're looking for kind of day-to-day ability, then you buy the German cars. John Mochi says Warren Buffett is super rich and drives an older model Cadillac. I think he is on to something. Yeah, if you want to keep your money, don't buy cars at all. I mean, that's ultimately the best thing because they are money pits, all of them. But if you want to enjoy life along the way and you're a car person, like they say, life's too short to drive boring cars. So it doesn't matter if it's a $5,000 car or $20,000 car or 100 or 500,000. If it's kind of fun, drive it. What else do we have here? Yes, there's a lot of great cars. I would say if you're looking at exotic cars and maybe you're not necessarily living that world and you're saying, hey, all of a sudden I won $40 million, what would be a good car? I would say right now, some of the best cars I think would be brand new. I would look at Lamborghini, Ferrari, McLaren. McLaren, I would probably go with the 675 LT or the 750 now is the current generation, replace the 720. So the 750 is a sweet ride. That would be a good choice if you're looking and you came across a whole pile of money. The 750 is a slightly softened 765, in my opinion. So 750 would be a good attainable car that you can currently buy from McLaren. Ferrari, you're running out of time. I would say the 296 is probably your best bet. It's rear-wheel drive and it's fantastically fast. The 296 is an amazing car. And Lamborghini, the Temerario, I'm not the biggest fan of the looks of it, but it is just so loaded with technology and performance. Time will tell on the reliability of it. For Lambo, I probably skip that for now. I would probably look at, although I've heard there's been a few engines grenade, I would probably look at the Revuelto. I think it's just got the whole package covered. So if you're winning the lottery, why not, right? So the Revuelto is the car I would probably look at. The quality of it, you've got the improved chassis, carbon. it's got the whole meal deal. It's got the doors, it's got everything. So the Revuelto is the car to have. Um, some asked the Ferrari, what about the SF90? Well, if you're so here, if you're looking for a slightly used car, I would say 765 LT or a 720. You can find them under 200K now. So those are probably what I'd look at. Slightly used, probably the SF90 over 296, because now they've taken such a hit on depreciation that it offers 1,000 ponies for barely a hint over what a brand new 296 is going for. So an SF90 for buying it used is probably their best bang for buck right now. McLaren's 675, if you can find them yet. There's a few of them around, or the 720. There's just so many cars, so little time, and not enough money. I wish I had more money. I'm sure I'm like everybody here. We all wish we had a little more money. Port City Investments use Huracans, can get good deals here. Yep, Huracans are always going to be a good go-to. They're the best, most reliable supercars, as are the Audi R8s. Almost the same kind of chassis and same drivetrains. Kaiser 75, do you have exotic car driving experiences available in Northern Alberta? I went on a car tour in Toronto. No, I haven't really heard of that. There's a couple of little niche operations here that I think might rent the odd car, or there was a couple places in business. I don't know if they've survived. Just doesn't feel like the market is here. I mean, there is money here in this province, but it doesn't feel like there's much of that. I haven't really heard of these big car driving experiences. The problem is we only have 6 months of the year and the roads are so bad that it's a big risk. Twisted Reality says, I wouldn't need a supercar. A Range Rover or Cadillac will do for me. Yeah, Range Rover Sport is a cool looking car. The brand new Range Rovers are beautiful. I always talk about them on the channel. From a reliability standpoint, they're a nightmare, potentially. Huge cost for maintenance. But again, if you're winning the lottery, who gives a hoot, right? They're fun cars. They're nice. They're beautiful. So yeah, I get it. What do we have? Abracadabra. Angelo says, Mark, what are your thoughts on the Challenger Charger 5.7 Hemi engines and the reliability? Yeah, the overall reliability isn't horrible. I think the Challenger and Chargers with the V8s in any format are always going to be a lot of fun. The SRT8s and all of this. And then you get into the other drivetrains and you get the Supercharged and the Hellcats. And I mean, they're all amazing cars. The Hemis have been, you hear about the Hemi tick, you hear about some of the oiling issues in some of these engines that you get in some of those Dodges. It's a thing. It's real. Yeah, it's a problem. But I mean, the engines don't generally grenade. They just start ticking and rattling and making some noise. So I don't know. They're a fun car. Mopar. It's too bad they're going away, right? I mean, now they're going pure electric. So I don't know what Stellantis is thinking. Maybe if you like those cars, get them while you can. In any format in a V8. Don't go with the little V6s and that. No. Not in a Charger or Challenger. That's like a 4-cylinder Mustang. No, just no. So yeah, I mean, get while the getting's good. And what do we have? Triniman 922. Love my AMG C63S. Gotta love those. Are we talking the 4-liter twin turbo, or are we talking about the older 6.2? They're great cars. The C63 are all a lot of fun. So anyway, you know what? It's just a nice way to talk and wrap up a great Friday afternoon. And I want to throw this out there and see what people are feeling about some of their best dream cars. Okay, you got the 4-liter twin turbo. That's great because that's popular engine that's going into the Vantage and going in, into multiple different vehicles now because it's such a great drivetrain. So that is a good engine and puts down some good performance with about 500 ponies there. So great choice, great engine, great car. I drove those and they're a lot of fun. So I absolutely get where you're coming from with that. Um, Ford GT, Kaiser 75. Yes, good stuff. And BMON says right now, 128 manual. I've got an automatic, also the the Quadrifoglio, and the newer Ridgeline. Good choices. The Ridgelines, I mean, what can you? It's a great daily, and the quad, amazing. What can you say? Super fast, powerful, 505 ponies. You can't go wrong with that stuff. So, what would be, before I kind of wrap it up? What would be my favorite car, probably under 100,000. What would be my favorite car under $100,000? US dollars, of course. Um, Probably a C8. Probably another F-Type, maybe an SVR. Maybe a base Carrera. Possibly look at be touch and go on the 991 generation. Maybe touch and go on a 997 generation 2 turbo, because I don't like the Tiptronic. At least you can get the PDK or the manual in the generation 2. Those would probably be my top picks, if we're being honest, in that price range. I think those are some of the best cars you can get for fun. BMW M2 manual, Luke, you betcha. That'd be another one up there. As would be an M4 competition with the S55 and the DCT. I love the competition. It just gives you that gnarly exhaust sound, and they're a lot of fun. So maybe an M5 comp too. Those are cars that I would consider, under and around that $100,000 range. Drink More Water says, I want to get a Range Rover, eyeing one around 30K miles, but everything I'm watching and reading is saying don't do it, even this channel. So, yes, I mean, there's a couple perspectives. I come from a perspective of I like to talk about reliable, durable cars, because nobody wants that car. Like, everybody says, well, life's too short to drive boring cars, but that's not a boring car. So why is it not recommended? So here's the thing. And I had a good conversation with somebody the other day about this. The last thing you want is a car like a McLaren or a Ferrari that is one of the best driving cars ever. And you come out of that restaurant with your spouse, your date, your friend, and there's a small crowd of people taking pictures of the car. You get in the car, you turn the key, and it won't start. Then you're on the phone, you're calling a tow truck. See, that's a level of reliability I'm not interested in. So while we all like the fun cars, there's a caveat, and it can't be more trouble than it's worth. And so that's where I'm coming from when I'm talking about this. And so Range Rover, I mean, I had an F-Type, and it comes from the same family. And I didn't have any issues, really. I mean, I would say the price point for servicing and maintenance are very high. The parts are very high. The hourly rate is very high. And the mileage you're getting in there is in the point where you're going to start to see some issues, depending on the model or the generation you're looking at. If you're talking about the newer stuff or the older, you're going to anticipate some expensive repairs. Are they the most unreliable? I mean, I think a lot of the press blows it out of proportion. I think there's worse vehicles. Actually, I'll say it. I really do believe there are. So I don't think they're the absolute toilet for reliability. I think what comes with them is the fact that there's limited dealer network access. The parts are really highly expensive. Service costs are pricey, but they're not brutally unreliable. Just be prepared to have some money in the bank. And that goes with any of these British cars. You're talking Aston Martin, like Mario saying Aston Martins, BMW Minis, which are BMWs, but any of that stuff, Astons, Jags, JLR Group, Land Rovers. There's some bad ones in there, but you know what? Find a good one that's well sorted. And depending on the model and the drivetrain and the year, make sure that you do a good check on the history of it. And this one you're saying what, a 19 to 21 supercharged 5.0. So you're talking about similar engine that I had in my F-Type R, and it's not a bad engine. I know that one. It eats O2 sensors. It's direct injection, so it eats injectors. Um, and there's a Y pipe issue that splits Y pipes and coolant. So you update that Y pipe and be prepared to replace the odd O2 sensor or injector. Have an extra 5 to 10K sitting around in the bank. But outside of that, it may be very well worth owning. Just, if it's buying it from a dealer, maybe look at some extended warranty CPO, get you a little peace of mind. And other than that, you could do worse. You definitely could do worse. So, like I said, I had a very similar drivetrain in mine. And so it's not the worst thing. Scott Medlin says, you still got the old Ram truck. You betcha I do, Scott. And it's Ram. And I laugh because it's my daily workhorse. I needed a truck. I bought it many years ago because we have trailers and, we have a boat. So I needed something to haul it around. But I'll be the first to admit, it's, there's a wind noise that comes out of the passenger side when you're driving down the road. There's a check engine light that I can't get rid of. I even changed the sensor. I had the dealer do it, and they couldn't get to the bottom of it. So it's still got a permanent check engine light because of an O2 sensor. There's a little cold engine rattle to it. There's a loose U-joint. And it's got a loose front end. But I love it. It's bought, it's paid for. I don't own the bank anything on it. And honestly, it's really a utility vehicle for me. It's my go-to in between running parts, grabbing parts. It's my errand runner. And we do have other cars for sure. And that's my, if I can say, my utility vehicle. So I have it, and it's been good. It's been good. So Mario, with a lot of the Porsches, once you get the IMS bearing fixed, you're good forever. I would say for the most part, yeah. It depends on how you fix it too, Mario. Because the IMS, there's a couple of options. You could upgrade to the IMS bearing. There's an oil-fed system, which consists of an oil line, feeds to a sealed bearing, and it flushes the oil through, and it keeps that bearing completely sealed and completely feeding of oil, and it keeps that bearing lubricated always. So that's one system. There's also another improved ceramic type bearing, but there's also an unsealed bearing system that's much upgraded, heavier, more robust bearing. And it's like a lot of these bearing systems are dependent on the manufacturer, and it's only as good as your weak link. It's still, unfortunately, a system that isn't perfect and is potentially prone to failure. Yes, once you repair them and you get the right system installed, you're good for a lot of years. And, we have a 996 early generation with a 3.4, and we've got the upgraded IMS. Knock on wood. That's all I'm going to say about that. But yeah, I mean, it's not a car you need to run from. Just make sure it's got the right service history to it. And channel, is Julia a good daily? Is it really that bad in terms of maintainability? I wouldn't say it's horrible. There's two ways to look at it. Putting high miles on a car like that is more detrimental to the value of it on resale than it is to the car itself. And the cars that sit too long wind up with battery charging issues, low voltage, and then that wreaks havoc and starts causing check engine lights and other kind of faults and failures. And because weak batteries cause other issues with the Giulias and some of these Italian cars because they sit too long. So drive it, put miles on it, use it regularly, and you're probably in a better condition with that. V8 Lexus GSF, that's a great car. What are the best used cars for 10K? Best used cars for $10,000, you won't get much. Civic, early generation Civic, like a 2013, with decent miles, would be my pick. Probably a Corolla, early generation. early generation Camry, if you can find those, are hard to find at that point already. Um, yeah, I mean, not a lot for under $10,000. But really, we have people in the household here looking for cars to under 10 grand. And I'll say the best place to look is Toyota, Honda, and Mazda. The rest at this point, with those kind of miles and that age, I probably wouldn't bother. Um, let's see, what do we got here? AMG GTR Black Series. That's another good surefire car. Super fun. Um, BMON. BMW 128 is about 10K. So yeah, that's pushing the limits. Yeah, that's pushing the limits. So if you're talking about fun or you're talking about reliability, it kind of depends where you're going with that. Shora says, though I'm more than happy with my F-Type R. I would be. I still believe that for the bang for buck, there's probably no better car. It gives the sound, the drive, the experience, and everything. So that's why it's on my list of one of the best choices under $100,000 is any derivative of the F-Type R, SVR, or any of those. So you really can't go wrong. Nissan Z Sport, 6-speed, twin turbo, 400 horse, $47,000 before taxes. Takes you over 50K. That's a nice car. Does anybody look if there's any news on the 25 RCF? Anybody? Anybody got any news on that? And what do we have? David Bilicki says, hello, is the new Ford Bronco with a 2.7 engine worth buying? I'd be honest. I like it a lot. David, I really like the new Broncos. I like them too. I just think the reliability is a little up in the area. I would say, have you heard the latest? I think there's recalls on the 2.7 and the 3 liter, where the intake valves from the manufacturer have been dropping the heads. Like they fracture and then the heads fall in. Now, apparently that's a batch or a certain grouping of them. And so the 2.7 and the 3 liter affects the Broncos and as well as the F-150s. And then, of course, there is some of the issues with the variable valve timing system, with some of those that have been a bit of problematic. But honestly, I would really consider. I'd make sure that the engine wasn't part of that recall and that you were shopping for one that didn't have those issues. So please, if you're looking at a Bronco, I would look at one. I think they're better looking than the Jeep Wrangler, in my opinion. But definitely do your homework on the VINs and the batches that have those issues, and to make sure that you're not buying one with those issues. But I like the Bronco, and I would definitely consider buying one. You know what? LGX2, I really do appreciate. I do appreciate the extra support there. LGX2, I really do. So not a huge car buy, but want to get something nice and fast before it all gets banned or taxed into oblivion. Agenda 2030, you know it, we know it. What do you think about a newish BMW X3M or X4M? Is the S58 reliable? Oh, yes. I think, see, the S55 was a reliable engine before it, but they had that crank hub issue. Now, the S58 seems to be exempt from those issues. It's kind of a redesign. I love the X3M and the X4M. I think they're so blindingly fast. And because they're sort of the older generation, you're not going to be buying into all this hybrid. You're not going to be buying into all this electrification. And not only would I be okay with that vehicle, I personally was looking at buying one. And if you can splurge the extra money, because some people are looking at, say, the X340i, which gives you the B58, and that's a hot rod. Trust me when I say the S58 that you're looking at in the X3M and the X4M are on another level. You're talking about the M3, M4 drivetrains. This thing is a serious beast. And I would absolutely buy one. And not only would I buy one, I would definitely be selective on how much I use it. That car is going to hold value for some time. I think just because where we're headed with all these cars, look at what Mercedes is doing. They're poking the eyes of everybody that was a loyalist, a brand loyalist of the AMG cars, and they come out with a 2-liter turbo with hybrid upon hybrid, and it was a kick in the sack for anybody who liked the AMG cars. But BMW, I think it's a matter of time before they get nuts. Right now, that's one of their best cars and best drivetrains, and I would suggest it's showing to be quite reliable. Now, granted, they're direct injected. You're still going to have the BMW woes with the odd water pump and the coolant line and things like that. That's going to be not an uncommon thing. I mean, you will do some maintenance on it, and I will highly suggest that you do more frequent maintenance and be careful with the right oil. And I'll get into what's going on with some of these oil issues these days with direct injected engines, but they're proving to be quite reliable, just pretty much up there with the B58, but you've got more power. So I hope that kind of helps you. No worries. Love both your channels. Thanks, LGX2. I appreciate it. I have an X3 M40i on order, but want to step up. Is it too late? Is it too late to swap it out? Because I would. If you're there anyway and you want to spend the extra 15, 20K, I absolutely would go there. I mean, and if that's not possible, look at a slightly used. I was looking at one that was, a couple of them that were like demo miles. That might be an option, but it sounds like you've already maybe got deposits, so it's kind of tough. But yeah, I mean, I think it's worth the upgrade in my opinion. It comes at a premium, so if you're not a diehard enthusiast, it doesn't matter. That's why not everybody buys those. But for people that appreciate performance, that's as good as you're going to get. And in the BMW world, it's seriously fast. LGX2, no, they want to deliver next week, but I can get an X4M instead. If it were me, let's just put it this way. If it were me, I would. Thanks, man. You betcha. And thanks for asking. Thanks again for the support. So Mr. Higginbotham says, I love my 2018 Tacoma, as you would and you should, because now, as you know, 2.4 turbo 4s are not as good as the older V6s. So good choice on that, and I don't blame you. Anyway, thanks again, everybody. I want to say, hey, thanks. Hope everybody has an absolutely wonderful weekend. Beautiful. Oh, I hope we don't get snow. And wherever you're at, hopefully you don't have snow and you have a wonderful weekend. And maybe we'll see you tomorrow. Please do drop a line in tomorrow's comment, 8 a.m. MST on a video tomorrow, as well as I'm dropping my news stories on Monday morning at 8 as well. Hope to see each and every one in the next one. Have a wonderful weekend, everybody. Thanks again. Bye-bye.